Welcome. Today we're going to do an overview on narrative writing. Let's start out by taking a look at our purpose for doing narrative writing in the first place. So the reason that a writer chooses narrative writing is to explain or to entertain. Now those two pieces feel really different. To explain something is very different than to entertain. So to entertain is purely your fun story. Right? It's your narrative that's just telling a story that's just great fun. It's very artful. But to explain, sometimes you'll use a narrative essay, and this is more the purpose of where you're explaining something as opposed to entertaining. You're making a point, really, by using the narrative as your tool. Now, the tone that writers can use depends upon the genre, because really, the tone that's used for a scary story, a scary narrative, is going to be very different than the tone that's used for a narrative that's more along the lines of a fairy tale, right? A folk tale, something like that. So really the tone is going to vary, and that's going to be dependent upon what's the genre, what's the audience, who's reading it, and how does the writer want to take that message behind the narrative and get it across to the reader. So take those things into consideration. And of course, the reader is there to read the narrative for a variety of different reasons. And it's either going to be entertained, because it's an amusing story, or to learn something. Let's take a look at a few different examples. Where do we see narrative writing on an everyday basis? Narrative writing is pretty common. We see it in quite a few different areas, although it's going to be different areas than where we typically see expository writing or research writing, that kind of thing. So we definitely see it in poetry, in narrative poetry in particular. Absolutely short stories, novels, that's absolutely narrative writing. It's telling the story, using the story to get the message across. You can also have narrative articles or narrative essays, definitely a possibility. And memoirs, even though they are truthful, and the purpose of a memoir is to get biographical information across, it's still dependent upon that story. Same thing as a memoir. It's sharing the story of a person's life or a part of a person's life. Oftentimes with product or service endorsements, you'll have a famous person who's sharing information by using a narrative. So they may say, I've got this story of what happened to me when my children were small, and let me tell you the story, and this product was so great. Okay? Narratives in very small forms can be used as product endorsements. You may also find narratives as reflections as people look back upon their lives. In interviews, you oftentimes see lots of wonderful narratives coming out of interviews. And of course, there is the personal narrative that is a typical essay format that you'll see. Biographies and autobiographies both have significant levels of narratives included within their writing. And really any piece of story where the writer is telling a story has a narrative to it. Even if it's just a narrative element to it overall, that is still narrative writing. So, got great information here about what's a narrative, why are we writing narratives, what do our readers expect from us as we're writing narratives. I hope this information is helpful to you in your writing, and good luck with your writing.